Now, I would request Professor Du Tha Ha from Vietnam National University, Hanoi. She was supposed to present her paper yesterday, but she couldn't come and she missed her flight. So I say, where there is a will, there is a way. She missed her flight, but she made it a point to come and deliver her paper over here. We should give her a very good hand and big applause. We welcome you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you very much. At first, I would like to thank for inviting me here. In fact, on the 2nd of October, I just translated one book published in Vietnam about essential of Hinduism, written by Gandhiji. And then I think that my dream is to come to the land of Gandhi. And right now it's come true. Thank you very much. And my paper talk about something I think that very important to Vietnam right now, because we have, harmony between people to people. Here is the men and women, I think like that. So if you come to Vietnam, you will be very surprised, because in my country, 93% of women go to work. So what happened? And we have one saying: first, your wife; second, your God. So what happened? I want to explain. Yes, in my presentation. First, because we don't have a time, so I will make very quick. After that, you can ask me some question about that. Yes, in my country, we have a mother worshiping. In Vietnam, mother is more important than beautiful girls. Why? Really? Because we worship mother, not beautiful girls. Yes. Here's very special in Vietnam. As you know that Mother Goddess, the Goddess worshiping everywhere in the world. Even in India you have. But worship only Mother is only in Vietnam. First, I talk about some three characteristics of folk belief in Vietnam. First, as you know that Vietnam located in center of humid tropical monsoon climate. That's why the nature here is very diverse. Another thing is that Vietnam is a crossway of many ethnic culture and civilization. We call in Indo and China. Yes, that's why the first characteristic in my folk belief is that Vietnam has a multi-religious country. Another thing is that, the religion in our country, we have a very special condition, is that the mixture of religion. It means that in our country, we have a harmony amongst all the religion. As you know that in Vietnam, up to now, we just talk about, 2,000 years CE. We have 200 wars and 176 belong to China. So what happened here, as you know that, we have to live in harmony, in solidarity. Everyone, hand by hand, go together to survive. That's why you know that in our country, folk beliefs, play very important role in ritual life of Vietnamese people. But we, have a very special condition is that religious mixture. The third characteristic is that in our country, you know, the religion is not something is too high for the commoners to absorb, to practice. It's to use. Yes, very different. For example, like if you come to Vietnam, a lot of people, they claim that they are Buddhist, but they still eat meat. Something like that, very trained to foreigners. But they talk that they follow the Buddha ways of life. They don't know much about the philosophy. They don't know much about, you know, the religious, the doctrine. But they follow the way to live Buddha. Something like that. The religion is to use. So the fourth, you know, characteristic is that the religion in general and the folk belief in particular in Vietnam is a gender-based. Yes. So mother worshipping is a gender-based. You can see here in every pagoda, they have one, you know, altar for mother worshipping like that. Every, you know, pagoda, especially in North Vietnam. And then I will skip something. Yeah, I will skip something. How about the mother worshipping? The characteristic? I think that we have 4 requirements of manifestation of national consciousness for mother worshipping. One is the motherland. Another thing is the family. The third one is the human condition. And the fourth is the physiognomy. Here, you know that in mother worshipping in our country, we have the background of cultural space, history, and Vietnamese community. If you ask me, I can, you know, talk about it later when we have a discussion. I will just get. So the mother goddess worship right now, as you know that we have 2 parts. One part is the 3 realms. It's the 3 goddess: heaven goddess, mountain and forest goddess, and lady water. Because as you know that Vietnam is an agriculture culture. And the 4 realms is the heaven, earth, water, and mountain and forest. So mother worshipping in our country, we practice even before the Lý dynasty. It means that the year 10,009 is very long, over 1,000 years in our country. And then, you know, in the mother worshipping, they have the philosophy of the universe seen as divided into 3 that can be distinguished by the color. Why is the color very important like that? Because when they have a chance, they have to perform, yes, the ceremony. The goddess will wear the color they present for. That's right. For example, heaven, it's red color, earth yellow, ocean white, and mountain and forest is green. For example, this one, you know that is a heaven up here. And then UNESCO in the year 2016, it means that only last year they recognized mother worshipping in our country as, you know, that intangible cultural heritage. So this means that they recognize the value of that kind of worshipping. I will skip something like that. So you can see here, you know, the evaluation of mother worship in our country. First, they will have the first stage. Yes, the first stage is mean that, you know, saint goddess worship. And the second one, they will come to, you know, 3 realms and 4 realm worship. And the third stage is mother worship. And right now, become goddess worship is a, different level and, enhanced in higher level of philosophy. So how, they practice that kind of, mother worshiping? It's through trend ceremony. You can see here, that the dress they wear here when, present for the goddess, they are in image. And so many foreigners, when they come to my country, they are attracted by the mother worshiping ceremony. I get one example of New York-based photographer, Travis and Shavi. He talked that there are other ceremony in other religion, but they are not like Hầu Đồng. It means, the chant for mother worshiping at all. They are very different. Hầu Đồng in Vietnam is otherwise, it's fun. I think that it's a happiness of audience that's striking to me. You can see, I will have 1 minute to show that. I learned that a lot of gods in Hầu Đồng are historical figure and national hero. So this thing is mean that, Vietnamese people, they symbolize the national hero and, to become God, to worship, because to our country, to survive, to struggle is the most important. That's right, they do something like that. So I quote one quotation from by Professor Nguyễn Chí Bền. He's used to be Minister of Culture and Information in our country. He talked like that. By using the figure of heroine mother goddess worship, honors the universal love of mother and woman role in society. At the time, mother goddess worship was formed when Taoism dominated. The idea of honors of women of Vietnamese people are very rare and humanity. This is one of the most significant values that UNESCO highly appreciated. And you can see here that 3 more slides only. So what I think that mother worshiping in Vietnam influence on, Vietnam in contemporary time. You can see here, the red one is a women role in the 2015, and 2 years more in green one. And you see here, the women in Vietnam take part in all aspects, all walks of life. And then, they have an important role to the nation very much. So I talk to you, for example, like economic manager, family education, and social structure, and social attitude. We have the first general in Vietnamese army, a woman. She's a woman, and she defeated American army. And thank you very much. The first vice president and also minister of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Nguyễn Thị Bình, used to be in India the year 2008. I accompany her. She's also, very famous diplomat in our country, and very high position in current economy. You can see here, 30% of biggest company in Vietnam led by lady. In America, I can show you, under 2% of 500 top 500 company led by lady. Yes, and 93% women in Vietnam go to work, and 95% literate. Yes. For example, in my university, 68 professors are female, like me. Yes. And even, in sport, they are champion in Southeast Asia for women football. Conclusion, I have, three points. Firstly, the mother goddesses can take one, on more than one role as a village genie or earth goddess, according to the system of worshipping of three gems and lucky goddesses who bestow on men. The pattern depends on the perception of residents in each locality. Secondly, the mother goddess are closely related to the local community and the ecological environment. Thus, this role can be seen as a manifestation of ecological adaptation. And the last, the worship of Mother Goddess is a demonstration of gender equality because the image of the land, the water, the soul of the nation has crept into each cultural value of Mother Goddess worship. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting papers. And now, I think in this session, we are going to change the format little bit. I would first invite co-chair to give his comments, then chair will give her comments. Later on, we will give an open session. So I request now our co-chairman, Professor R.C. Pradhan, Hyderabad Central University. Please, sir.
Thank you. Respected Chair, distinguished scholars, ladies and gentlemen. We have been from the last session onwards and perhaps from the very beginning concerned with holistic living and the associated concept of happiness. Today we have for the plenary topic the philosophy of happiness. So this shows how happiness has been really important for human race, the human beings, and therefore there is always a philosophical angle from which we can discuss the nature of happiness. As Sunil Bhai has rightly pointed out, that social scientists are also quantifying happiness, but that is a dimension which I do not wish to deny. But it is the philosophers who are really going to provide the right guidelines as to how we really can understand happiness and also find out the ways and means of achieving happiness. By referring to Dada Bhagavan's views on happiness, Mr. Parekh has rightly pointed out that happiness doesn't lie in what we have, but happiness lies in what we are. So happiness is a state of the being, a metaphysical state of being, rather than a way of achieving or a way of having something. This takes me back to our ancient wisdom. Buddha himself suggested that though life is suffering, but there is a way out of it. So Buddhism is also the first philosophy of happiness in a sense. But before that, the Upanishads are already indicated, what Buddha later on expounded, that there is no sukham in the alpa or in the limited. Bhumaiva sukham, nalpi sukham asti, bhumaiva sukham. This bhuma or the infinite must have been the source of happiness. This suggests that happiness itself is a very puzzling concept. As Dada Bhagavan rightly points out, I am nobody to say rightly, as in his wisdom he has pointed out that the world itself is a puzzle. And I will say happiness itself is a puzzle, life itself is a puzzle. The way out of this perhaps is to make a gradation of different kinds of happiness. Is it perhaps philosophers' business to find out what will constitute the right kind of happiness? That's why we again go back to our ancient wisdom. For example, Gita talks about sukham uttamam and atyantikam sukham. These two words strike me very much because he suggests that there is a higher kind of happiness which is very distinguishable or distinguished from the lower kind of happiness. from Aristotle's eudaimonia to Kant's holy will and to Wittgenstein's concept of happiness, there is a process of gradation in the sense that what Aristotle could not imagine in his opposition to Plato's idea of soul and the soul's salvation, Aristotle thought that by putting eudaimonia or well-being of a human being within a social structure will be enough to define happiness. But that was not to be, precisely because in the later years, the utilitarians made a very, very different kind of concept of happiness. They again went in search of a quantificational approach to happiness, and that must have been really a surprise to Aristotle, because Aristotle talked of well-being. But that is, Aristotle's concept of well-being doesn't catch the spirit of happiness, because the notion of spirit, which was in Plato, which is revived to some extent Kant and later philosophers in the West, and which is very much implicit in Indian thinking, that there is a higher state of human existence, which we can call spiritual. The concept of spirit really brings the concept of happiness to its right direction, because unless we go beyond our intellectual or mental happiness, there cannot be truly happiness. That's why, whether it is Buddha or Dada Bhagavan or the Upanishadic rishis, all are trying to find out a higher state of happiness which cannot be quantified, which cannot be articulated in language, which cannot be conceptualized, in the sense that it is state of being. If it is an essential state of being, a metaphysical state of being, for example, how can we really express what happiness is? If our quantificational methods would have been enough, then perhaps all of us would have been either characterized by a very happy country, but none of us are, excepting perhaps Bhutan in India, and perhaps Vietnam, as Madam has suggested. Vietnam must be a very happy country. But even then, the happiness is ephemeral, because that can be, at any time, that can really disappear. So if you face another war, and you said there are 2,000 wars in your 200 wars in 2,000 years of existence, perhaps every war will take away it. Therefore, I think we have to go back to our ancient sources of wisdom, which says that happiness cannot be contingent on the world, contingent on what we have in the world. Perhaps we have to find a way, like the Buddha, that there is a way of happiness which provides one kind of escape from the world. But that doesn't mean that we have to renounce the world, and holistic thinking very much suggests that we must include the world itself. But once we include this world, then we will see this world from a higher point of view. So in that case, the world will not remain a world in the gross sense of the term. Therefore, the Buddhist concept of samsara is nirvana and nirvana is samsara will be true, because in that sense, we will see this world itself as a world in which liberation is possible, or suffering, cessation of suffering is possible. So to conclude my short intervention, it is a golden opportunity for all of us to philosophize about happiness, because all of us are concerned with happiness. Whether we are small beings or very socially established beings, all of us have the same existential concern. We are in the same existential metaphysical predicament, and that is one which reminds us that we must go back to our ancient wisdom. Buddha is the lighthouse. All of us are turning towards Buddha. Vedanta is another lighthouse. We must go back to that. And perhaps this is a kind of way of recovering our own self in various ways, of course. But the recovery will be a spiritual recovery. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor R.C. Pradhan. Now I would request the chair, Professor Yoon Soo Choi from Seoul National University, South Korea. Chair has always been very patient to listen to everybody. So now it is our turn to be patient and listen to our chair. Welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Eun Soo Cho from Korea, South Korea. I'm a professor at Seoul National University philosophy department. I was asked to prepare a paper and which I didn't have a chance to present, but instead of chair's remark, I would like to just share some thoughts on Buddhist perspective on happiness, because it's pretty much in accordance with our respected co-chair. It is but based on Mahayana Buddhist perspective. I would like to introduce especially the Korean monk, Wonhyo. He's a 7th century scholar monk, and so I will just introduce a little bit. And if you can bear like 7 minutes of time, yes. So if we define happiness as a pursuit of pleasure and comfort, then there is little in the Buddhist scripture that could be said to be written about happiness. In fact, such a term would be seen only as a target of critique in early Buddhist scriptures. It is this pursuit of happiness that propels one into the reality that life in the world is limited, suffering, and inevitably unsatisfactory. We struggle to survive. Our bodies easy prey to the element and the time. Such Buddhist teaching that it is futile to pursue pleasure in this world have led some to suggest that the Buddhist view of life is ultimately negative and passive. It seems to suggest that Buddhism is incompatible with a successful life in a secular society, and that one must opt for a life of complete renunciation to find relief. After all, it is easy to be content with life if one sets their expectations so low that they can never be disappointed. Such a negative view of the Buddhist worldview arises only if we think of happiness as the endless pursuit of pleasure and comfort. While the Buddhists are fully aware that such pleasures and comforts are necessary to well-being, they also warn of the frustrations and the anxiety that can come from such a single-minded pursuit. Such ideas are not foreign to the West either. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard once said, "Most men pursue pleasure with such breathless haste that they hurry past it." The Buddhist understanding of happiness is not a calculated way to simply avoid suffering at all costs, but a way of avoiding the more painful mistake of rushing past true and lasting pleasure altogether. Buddhism would be nothing if not an immediate and personal account of how individuals can adapt, survive, and excel as beings within the secular world. Buddhists recognize that such a task is impossible without a sense of well-being, and so were keen to develop a theory and a practice to alleviate suffering. It was through this process that Gautama Siddhartha, the Buddha himself, in the search of an existential calm, developed the doctrine of no self. This is the only sense in which it is fitting to say that Buddhism is indeed a quest for a certain modern definition of happiness, an enhanced state of mind, being free from attachment, frustration, and anxiety. So I will just skip the most of it, and just want to say that the Korean monk Wonhyo's view is I would call it call it a happiness that arises from an integrity between reality, our view of it, and our ethical behaviors within it. In other words, the arguments that they present are not particularly optimistic ones, nor are they focused on happiness itself. But the conclusion they lead, they means Mahayana Buddhists, lead to nevertheless present a direction toward a life in the world that contains a positive perspective and the happiness in this life. So for Wonhyo, the ultimate truth does not negate conventional practice. Truth is not hierarchical. The ultimate is not something higher or more truthful than conventional truth. They both have currency, which is to say they make sense and can be used within certain spheres of influence. Wonhyo encourages us not to cling to any so-called accepted truth and instead transcend such a truth. We are responsible for our actions, but not really responsible because those actions have not really been produced and have not really committed then. Like his theory of emptiness-based logic tells in that way. So just in conclusion, I would say that, so I briefly argued that Buddhists have long tried to assert the non-conventional, non-self doctrine on one hand and apply it to the conventional matters of happiness on the other. That said, I believe that any time is the right time for Buddhist ethics to be articulated as a reflection of contemporary social behaviors in ways that will help people gain perspective of life's meaning, cultivate lasting happiness, and encourage more daring in their virtuous activities. The theory of non-self need not erode positive outlook of life. On the contrary, the paradoxical nature of reality is revealed in this critical teaching. Only through a rapidly anti-essentialist non-self view is one able to enable great hope and the pursuit of happiness in a truly meaningful and sustainable way. Coming out of ego on one hand, while encouraging our cautious spirit on the other hand, the non-self view gives us humility, but also more importantly, the courage to overcome self-doubt and the confidence in the purity of our motivation and the practice to achieve meaning in life and finally overcome our own delusions of inadequacy. What is important in regard to the matter of happiness is being free, not from the constraints of others, as more modern secular versions of happiness might have it, but rather from the attachments that the illusory views of self conjures. This is the happiness of understanding emptiness. This is the road to freedom, I believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now we invite questions if you have any, but I'll just request to be precise and ask questions, or if there is any detailed input, kindly put it on a note or a paper and hand it over to us so that we can pass it on to them. Any questions, please? Udhar, mic.
Yeah, this is for the Professor Tong from the Vietnam. No, sorry. Two slight comments and one question. I was a visiting professor in Vietnam National University a long time ago, 5 years ago, and also visited Hanoi and so many things. What you said is right. You know, I was very impressed with the number of women faculty in the Vietnamese National University. And I am also impressed about the Hindu temple, the Mariamma temple in Ho Chi Minh City, because I am interested in the study of the temples, Hinduism, diaspora Hinduism. What impressed me most there was, it was built by a South Indian Chettiar 105 years ago, but all the worshippers, unlike most places, all the worshippers are Vietnamese. The priest is a Vietnamese, 2 priests, and he doesn't know a single Sanskrit word. In fact, if Hinduism has to spread abroad, this has to be the model, because in most other places in Bangkok and all that, it's always the South Indian priests go there and that sort of a thing, you know. I was very impressed and I talked to him so much. This is a comment. My question is, Vietnam traditionally was a Champa country. The Champas, you know, they were the original inhabitants of Vietnam. And I tried to find out what is their legacy to the modern Vietnamese religious movements, you know. I didn't find any temple of the Champas which have left, nor are there any traditions, you know, which they have left, which have become a part of the Vietnamese religious life. Thank you.
Thank you. Please pass on mic back. Pitch, back side.
Thank you very much for your question. What you say is true. In fact, right now, Cham people have a number of 70,000 people. 70,000 people. And their heritage become World Heritage in Mission. Still keep it. And right now, Indian government and Vietnamese government, you know, have a cooperation to make it become very famous, the opened museum. Yes, the first, this year, just start on last March, I take part in the mission, is that they rebuild A1 tower. So it means that they still keep it, the heritage of Cham people.
I am from Nepal and from Tribhuvan University. It's a very interesting presentation you did. Actually, in Nepal, we have the Kumari Worship. Kumari Worship. And the only country where the living goddess is. Living goddess is. It is also related with the woman worship. It's not a mother worship, but it is the Kumari worship. So, I think there is something relationship. So, let us try it, find out. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I know Kumari Worship that for the virgin girls, it's not like a mother worship in like my country, but I think that in our country, mother worshiping have the base, the background, the setting for culture. It become a habit, a custom for people when they, you know, look up women in our society. I think we are lucky. Yes.
Our Thai friend,
Yes, thank you.
in your opening passage, you have mentioned that Buddha's teaching is meant for both God and human, which means that Buddha is above even God. What do you mean by God?
Difficult to say because this is according to the literal translation of the word Deva Manusanang. That is for Deva and for human being. But we don't know what that means, God, in that sense.
I have one question for you, Professor Tang.
I have a question for the youngest person here. He talked about the linguistic, epistemic, arguments. Are you aware that in ancient India, there was also a definition of Jalpa, Vitanda and Vada? And Jalpa means argument, which, our politicians speak in the parliament or outside the parliament without knowing the result of it. Vitanda is an argument where the argument is perhaps correct, but there is an, ego. But Vada, is an argument without Raga and Dvesha. And Bhagavad Gita says, Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam Vadah Pravadatamaham. When you are scholars, you argue, but you don't have the ego for it. Are you aware of these three, compared to the Buddhist argument?
Thank you so much for your questions. And yes, this threefold distinction has already been found in the Nyaya Sutra, the Vata form of debate, and the Chalpa and the Vedanta form of debate. And I think what is talking about by the Buddhists about sadhana, it's a debate, kind of debate in the Vata form, but not in Chalpa or Vedanta. So. Just since there are also many treatises, 3 treatises written by Vasubandhu, Vata Vidi, Vata Hritaya, and Vata Vidana, all about Vata. So.
Thank you very much.
I have few questions.
At the end of this session, we will now felicitate our speakers, co-chair and chair, and then we will.
I have questions. Excuse me.
Meantime, the felicitation is going on. You can put your question. And I'll request Madhukar Patel Saab to just come forward and felicitate our... Aap apna question.
Okay, no problem. I have question.
And I'll request the volunteers to kindly bring memento and flowers for our speakers, co-chair and chair. Yes.
Sunil, I have a question for you. So can we talk, discuss or convince our antaskaran or can communicate to change new causes or beliefs? That is my first question. Second question, converting negativity into positivity for beliefs. Does it free will? Is it free will?
Is it what?
Free will, free will.
Free will. Okay.
Free will. Third question is how to achieve oneness of mind, body and speech. And last but not the least, what is to be renounced, beliefs or things? Thank you.
You can discuss it during lunch hours also.
No, this is important for all, not for me.
No,
I have answer.
We do understand, sir. But with due respect, as we are falling short of time, we are going back. We are not ahead of it. And I'll request Mr. Madhukar Patel to kindly come forward and respected chair, kindly give a flower bouquet. Professor Yoon Soon Chu from Seoul National University, South Korea. We are thankful to you, madam, for being over here. And now, co-chair Professor R.C. Pradhan from Hyderabad Central University. Then Shri Sunil Parikh from Ahmedabad. But उनको किया है तो फिर दो बार अच्छा Professor Tang Mongjung from China, very young and energetic speaker. And then Professor Chiraput from Parma Vidya. And last but not the least, Professor Du Thu Ha from Vietnam National University, Hanoi. She presented a very good paper. God cannot be everywhere, so he created mother. This is what, and I was so engrossed that I meantime forgot that I have to get up and announce further. Now I'll request Professor Mr. L.D. Patel to kindly give a further information regarding parallel sessions, then we will go for a lunch break.
Thank you, Shalini ma'am. That's true. I can tell you, Professor Dothuha, on the day of her coming to India, her mother fell sick, so she cancelled the tickets. And next day, she again bought the tickets and came here. She was equally keen to come here. When she was assured that her mother was recovering, so that's how, yes, she has proved also. I am making a announcement about parallel sessions. There are small changes. Please listen, all those who have to speak in APC. The speakers will be Dr. Namita Nimbalkar, Dr. Prakriti Goswami, Dr. Yasmin Nasima Parveen, Professor Matthew Varghese, Muhammad Islam Sirajul from Santi Niketan, Professor Jang J. Jin from South Korea, Dr. E.T. Dayal, Dr. Chinaya P. and Mr. Chintapalli Anjanayelu. This parallel session will be starting at 2:45. Please curtail your lunch period so that we can cope up with the sessions. Then another announcement, because thereafter there will be third parallel session from 4:45 to 6. So let me announce so that I will not have another opportunity to announce those things. This will be Swami Deepakanandji, Dr. Desh Bahadur Limbu, Mr. Andrew Bakro, Professor Shivapalan Seladurai, Dr. Baldevanand Sagar, Dr. Ritu Jaiswal, Dr. B.R. Santha Kumari, Samani Chaitanya Prajna, Patel Bhagirath, and Mrs. Sagar. So then the last announcement is about special evening session. It is not it's slightly different, not like yesterday's session. It is at 6:30, a 45-minute or maybe maximum 60-minute session is there, wherein HSRC would like to present in under chairmanship of professor, but what we can do for you and what you can do for us, coupled with an opportunity for interaction with enlightened being. Dr. Sri Kanu Dadaji is there. Scholars can ask their queries about enlightenment. He is a person within us. So that is a unique opportunity to discuss the topic we are pondering and thinking and hypothesizing. Thank you very much.